Hello and welcome to Casual Buddhism. I'm your host, Cindy Rasicot, and I'm always joined by Venerable Dhammananda Bhikkhuni, who is Thailand's first fully ordained Theravada nun. For those of you who are new, may not know who she is, I want to offer you a resource. I've just recently written a book about her called This Fresh Existence, Heart Teachings from Bhikkhuni Dhammananda. And we always have a guest, and our guest this week is Sharon Suh. I'd like to say just a word about her. She's a professor of Buddhism in the Department of Theology and Religious Studies at Seattle University. She received her PhD in Buddhist Studies from Harvard University and has published 3 books: Being Buddhist in a Christian World,
เห็นห
Gender.
น้าเล่มที่สองข้างบนเล่มที่สอง
I'll just say that again. Being Buddhist in a Christian World, Gender and Community, Silver Screen Buddha, Buddhism in Asian and Western Film, and Occupy This Body, a Buddhist memoir. I'm interested in all of them. And you're writing a new book as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sharon, please, anything you want to begin with?
First, I just
Yes.
want to say how delighted and pleased I am to see you again, Venerable Dhammananda. What a joy. We met last year when I came to Thailand, and I came to visit your wonderful temple. And also, thank you, Cindy, for inviting me. You also came to my book talk
Yes.
in Berkeley. So I was so delighted to meet you in person as well. And I know that this is an opportunity for us to share some questions and comments, and I have so many. And so I'm going to try very hard to keep it short and sweet. But, you know, as I was reading, Cindy, your book on Venerable Dhammananda, and I've known and taught about you, Venerable Dhammananda, for many, many years. And so when I was reading this book, there was something that struck me, and it was something that you were teaching. And actually, Cindy, it's on page 92 of your book, but Venerable Dhammananda, you wrote that the practice of samadhi comes about through right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Meditation will bear fruit only when the sila is pure. Sila, samadhi, and panna are taken together with the Eightfold Path. And I love this quote so much because in the West, in the US, we never really hear people talk about the connection between sila and meditation. Most people assume that if you meditate, that's enough. And so I would love to hear a little bit more, if you could share with the general audience why the sila is so valuable and important.
Yes, thank you so much. This, if we refer to Mahaparinirvana Sutra, the longest sutra, it is about the journey, the last journey that the Buddha took with Venerable Ananda from Vesali to Kushinagar. And he stopped at many places. It took him days, before he could actually arrive in Kushinagar. And I noted that each and every place that he stopped, to see his monks, to see the lay people, they knew that this is going to be his last journey. So they all gathered, some of them crying and weeping. So the Buddha reminded them that the practice is sila, samadhi, panya. If you read Mahaparinirvana Sutra, this is almost through his journey, he repeated this. So I take it as a very important message that in order for us to have clear mind, to have our meditated mind, unless and until we base first with the sila, with morality, keeping, at least for lay people, keeping 5 precepts intact. You cannot develop into pure panya, into, how to say, spiritual panya, not the worldly panya. Panya is wisdom, not the worldly panya that is very clever, you become teacher, you become professor, not that kind of panya, but panya that would eventually allow you to have this glimpse of reality with capitalized R. So unless and until we have this purity in our practice, understand the 5 precepts properly. I have to say that the monks also are responsible for this misunderstanding of skipping the sila, because when they come to the West, some of the American people, they are not Buddhist. They're not Buddhist yet. So if you start giving them precepts, it will be kind of forcing on them, no? So some of the teachers, some of the monks teacher jump into guiding them for meditation. So that meditation, without the foundation of sila, without the foundation of morality, does not and cannot lead to the higher panya. It will provide you that kind of what you call very, very quiet, very peaceful, very calm, but cannot go beyond that. So in order for us to really strive for panya, spiritual panya, we have to start properly with keeping the precepts. Keeping the precepts, it is not only in Buddhism. If you study Judaism, the 10 commandments, the second part of the 10 commandments actually is 5 precepts. The first part you talk about, you believe in one God, you don't have any other God beside this, the Almighty God. But the second part of the 10 commandments also is very similar to the 5 precepts. So whether you are Jewish, you have Jewish background, you are Christians, I think basically we have to have precepts. We have to have sila. Yes. So when we have sila, then samadhi will be kusala. Kusala means wholesome samadhi. And when the samadhi is wholesome, then you can develop that kind of panya, that kind of wisdom that will see you through this passage of suffering. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that response, because it really is the case that in the US, where I've visited many places, it seems like meditation is always held to be the most important way to transform suffering. And so what I found in this book and in the stories that you narrate is so much about the heart and the ethics. And it seems like we're a little bit behind the times in terms of understanding the role of ethics and the role of sila. There's a tendency to not want to do that in the US.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's a peculiar thing. I have a friend, Cindy, you might know, Lian Shutt, who is a Vietnamese Buddhist priest, and she has said that the Noble Eightfold Path and the ethics are what keep us safe to be around. They make us safer people for other people to interact with. And yes. I love that connection too. So it seems that I'm just going to make a bold statement here, that many of the women that I have met who are Buddhist teachers really do emphasize that part, because that's the part that seems to get missed in the US. And you mentioned many monks that come to teach, and it was primarily the monks who came first to teach in the West. And I wonder how much that plays a role.
Yeah, yes, Sharon. And also, when they say that, how many precepts you keep, the very first question generally lay people ask when they know that you are Bhikkhunis, 311. Oh, that is scary. I will never, ever become Bhikkhunis, But for us Bhikkhunis, these 311 precepts, it's our protection. It's our protection, It is not something, don't do that, don't do that. The Buddha never had that kind of intention. All the precepts that is laid for us is only to guide us towards the right path, to protect us from otherwise we get off track, So the precepts actually keep us in this path. And once when you have the precepts properly, the path is clear for you. Automatically, you will be walking this path. When you get to that stage, you can let go of holding precepts, because the precepts already is inside you, in this flesh and blood that you keep, But don't say that, no need to keep the precepts when you have just started walking in this path. You have to walk the path far enough so that that path is your life. You cannot walk off the path, When you cannot walk off the path, then you can also leave the precepts. Then you can say you don't have to keep the precepts. That is exactly what Confucius said. When I studied Confucius, I was confused when he said, at 40, I will do this. At 50, I will do this. At 60, I just do according to my heart. He said something in this direction. And I didn't understand that, But then to realize that, oh, yes, because you walk the path, so that path is like you put the frames, on both sides for you to walk the path. But once when you know the path very clearly, you remove the frame and you still walk the path. That is how we keep the precepts.
It reminds me of the idea of training wheels on a bicycle.
Mm.
You're a child.
Yes.
Yes. Learning, right? And you keep them on until you learn how to balance. And then you don't have to, you keep the precepts, don't worry about them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
That's
yes.
great.
Thank you so much for that. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, as a female teacher, is, and Cynthia, we talked about this at my last talk about love and self-love. And it seemed to me that when I look into Buddhist traditions, to find any kind of teachings on love and self-love, especially in Asian cultures, we don't seem to find too much language around that. So most of the time I see things around metta, loving kindness, and you made a great distinction between metta and compassion. And so I'm wondering from your perspective, how you understand or how Buddhism might address the question of self-love, especially when there's so much conversation about no self.
Yes.
Thank you for that question.
May not be related, but this is what happened in our temple just last night. One of our sisters have been keeping cats. We don't keep cats in our temple because the dog would bite them and kill them instantly. So I said, no cats. But people always take cats and leave in the temple, hoping that they've just, the monks will take care of it, that kind of attitude. And then the cat happened to be a mother cat. She was pregnant. So when she came and lived in this area, gave birth to 3 more babies. And then there's another cat, a female. Somehow they don't like to keep female cat, in our country because they produce and then add up to large number of cats. Now, so we don't keep cats because the cats will get killed. Eventually will get killed by the dogs, But our sister, she's so full of metta, loving kindness and compassion. So she keeps them. How do you understand this? Is this a love for yourself? It is love for yourself because you wanted to express that you are full of metta and compassion and metta and karuna. You could read that this is a love for yourself. Yes, not understanding that this love for yourself is expressed in such a way that eventually the cats will all be killed by the dogs, So loving kindness, metta and karuna must be balanced, very well balanced with panya, with wisdom. You don't practice metta out of metta, just by metta alone, loving kindness alone. You don't practice compassion without the balance of panya. A bird cannot fly. The bird flies with 2 wings. One side you have compassion, another side is panya. So you need to balance between this. So I see this case that actually she believes that she is practicing metta, karuna, loving kindness and compassion, or she is practicing love for myself. Because love more for myself, people will see that I'm full of loving kindness. That's why I'm keeping the cats. But by keeping the cats will be eventually killed, So where is panya? So this is the trouble that we struggled last night. I don't know whether it is actually responding to your question or not, but that's what came to my mind. Yeah. Sometimes, sometimes it is love for ourselves, but it is expressed, is glossed over and expressed in such a beautiful way that people will accept easily. Yes, so yeah, our mind is very, sometimes very elusive. You have to catch our mind, how it functions.
I think that's a very a great example and a different kind of example of
Yes.
how self-love can be misunderstood, or a kind of misdirected sort of love. So my question is really about, especially for women, and certainly for Asian women and Asian American women where I come from in the United States, love for family is often understood as obligation or duty or responsibility. Many women end up feeling or being raised to feel like they are less valued, less important, less useful, if you will. And so I'm always curious about whether or not there is a Buddhist teaching of self-love that can be positive and not delusive, as you just said, or delusional.
Yeah. This clinging, women have the greatest love in their children. And it's not the other way around. I, as a daughter, did not have that kind of love for my mother as much as I have love for my sons. And this is natural for this human species. And our clinging, our love and our clinging to our children is so great. It goes beyond life after life. There was a story that really, I was very moved when I read this story. It's about a woman. She was weeping and crying because she just lost her son or her daughter. And her daughter's name was Jiva. So she was crying and wailing for Jiva. Then the Buddha happened to walk past by, and the Buddha just stopped and asked her, which Jiva are you crying for? You have been crying for more than 100,000 Jiva, that is in her previous life. She stopped to realize, and in this particular case, she was enlightened. She was enlightened with this understanding, realization that the Buddha just gave her the direction that just clinging on to the love of your children is so great. It is so great. It's beyond understanding, really. But when you stop and think, when and how are you going to cut through this circle of being reborn again, So by understanding that Jiva, that she's crying for, she has been crying like this for so many lives. Enough. So she cut through the cycle of rebirth. Yeah.
And I've heard you talk about loving yourself, and I've heard you say that we must be both beneficial to ourselves and to others.
Yes.
And that loving ourselves is probably the hardest thing. And not just necessarily for Asian women, but for a lot of women, all of us. Can you speak to that? Did you have any thoughts about that?
For women to love their children, you think that you love your children, but actually you love your children because it is your children. Emphasis is on your. And just give you an example. If someone come and tell you that, oh, there's one boy got hit on the street, you have no reaction. You just feel okay. But as soon as someone said that it is your son who is hit outside there, you jump. Your reaction is entirely different because it is your son. So that the relationship between that person and you is very strong. It's very, very strong. And often when we say that we love our children, if you really think deeply, it is because you love yourself. If you think deeply, it is because you love yourself. So when this does not come, this panya, this wisdom does not come on a ordinary level. You have to really be meditative, deep enough to understand that this love for your children is actually because you love yourself. Basically, because you love yourself, you love this existence of yourself, and that children is connected to this self. So that's why the Buddha said that, try to explain to us that this self that we hold on to as real, actually, it is not real. And this is just what the Buddha said, the truth is out there. It is like you're turning the cup upside down like this. You just open up the cup like this, So that's how Gontanya realized what the Buddha was talking about. And he became enlightened. Just simply understand this concept of self, to realize that this self from the beginning, it is impermanent. It is not real. But because we hold on to it as real for this long time, not in this life alone, but also in your previous life, that's why that woman was crying for Jiva, crying for her daughter. For so many lives, she had been crying for her daughter. Yeah.
There's something so that I appreciate so much about what you just said about, our love for one's children is really about love for oneself. And it helps me understand in many ways if we just speak about people, parents, mothers, for example, not everybody had a loving mother. And so if one's mother is abusive or difficult, does not express love, in many ways, in part, what you're saying helps me see a kind of compassion for that mother, because maybe that mother did not have that love for self. Yes. And I think that's such an important, profound way of understanding the difficulty and the suffering of the mother, in a way that perhaps I hadn't really thought about before. So
yes,
it's quite deep, and I really appreciate that so much.
Well, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Sometimes we expect love from mother the way you want, but our mother maybe never had that kind of love that we are thinking about, like giving you a hug, kissing you and all that. If your mother never had anyone express that kind of love to her, she didn't have any role model to express love, how can she love you the way you think she should? So this is yet another level of understanding the relationship between ourselves and our mother, and actually feel compassion for her.
It's so helpful for me. I've been writing a lot about love and about self-love, but also the relationship between mother and daughter is sometimes so difficult and so fraught. And I have to say, this is one of those short conversations that's going to open up a lot of more conversation and consideration for me, especially of this kind of wisdom and compassion that comes when you see that, maybe the mother did not love herself, and therefore does not know how to love in a way that the daughter may find helpful, beneficial, wholesome.
And I think paradoxically in that, it is a paradox that once you understand that the one that you expect or want love from is incapable of love, you begin to have love, both for the other and for yourself. There's an acceptance that happens there. I experienced that with my own mother, so through help from Venerable Dhammananda. But thank you so much. This is a great conversation. Thank you both. And it's really been a pleasure to have you, Sharon. And thank you, Venerable. Thank you, Longmei.